And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to 90 Terabytes of alternative gaming, where I'm very happy someone out there got our song. Is almost cheating because we talked about the game beforehand, but because there was no hint towards that or anything like that, it was still, I think, a sufficiently done one. The song was Frog's theme from Chrono Trigger, one of my favorite songs out of the whole game, and there's a lot of really good songs in that game. I forgot to ask if we can say your name on air, so our anonymous listener managed to win.
From Marshfield.
Yes, from Marshfield. Which is cool. Yeah, it was the first one who's so far away that we couldn't try to meet them at the Tech Lounge for it. So our tendrils of influence are expanding.
We got two little honorable mention thingies. I don't know.
For platformers?
Where we can fit these in. Super Metroid.
Super Metroid.
With a platformer.
Kind of.
You don't
yeah.
get anything. You know the leveling system.
Yeah, but it's mostly like it's mostly combat focused. But I don't know. I would call it, at least at that level, I'd say it was a platformer. Yep, and then the other big one was Donkey Kong 64. I'm assuming is what was
Donkey Kong Country. They're all platformers.
But they're all platforms, and the entire series was really awesome. Donkey Kong 64 is the one that sticks out in a lot of people's mind. Otherwise, Donkey Kong Country. They had another one come up for the Wii recently that I played a little, but I don't know. It just didn't have the same impact as it used to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. We had our winner. We didn't ask him if we could say his name.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you let me try to do things. That's why we can't have nice things. But laying platformers to rest, we move along to one of the it's pretty much the biggest genre of games out there now. First-person shooters, pretty much the games that everybody plays who doesn't play video games. Like, it's just everyone. Everyone knows at least one first-person shooter. And the thing that comes to mind right off the bat when you hear that, depending on how old you are, is GoldenEye. That was everyone and their moms had GoldenEye back when N64 was the dominant. Emily did not have it, unfortunately. Back when N64 was the dominant console, but you played it. I played it off and on. I preferred other games for my N64 over GoldenEye, though, as sinful as it is.
You're listening to 9 Terabytes Alternative Gaming here on WWSP Stevens Point,
yes.
90 FM, your only alternative
for gaming.
Basically, we talk about video games. We didn't reintroduce ourselves after we came back from the break.
Yeah, we didn't. We were in a rush.
Yeah, we're a video game talk show. We talk about video games, anything revolving around video games, anything important involving video games.
How good certain video games are as of right now.
That's what we're doing right now. It's 35 degrees outside in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Yeah.
And not snowing still.
Not snowing.
Yep.
Happy Thanksgiving.
It's going to be a nice, filled with dead grass winter.
Yeah.
My favorite. Yeah. But GoldenEye, pretty much, like, I really don't even know personally what you can even say about GoldenEye, other than the fact that it was like one of the first really awesome party games for the console. You could sit down and all four of you, or normally more than four people, but whoever with the four playing would just go like all knives or slappers and just have a generally good time. Yep. As a whole, it made gaming as a multiplayer be like the norm. It was to split screen games as the next game. Halo was to online multiplayer, I would say. It's what really made that be the norm. Halo 1 was on computer. That was awesome for online multiplayer.
I never played on the computer. I played it on the Xbox.
Plus, that was an awesome landing game.
GoldenEye, obviously released for the Nintendo 64 in August of 1997. Obviously released about the 95 James Bond film GoldenEye. Released by Rare, which has actually a couple places on our entire list. Rare also
back in the
did
day,
Donkey Kong,
they were
didn't
amazing. They've kind of regressed a little bit.
Didn't
lately.
Rare do Donkey Kong?
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
They did Donkey Kong
So,
Country and Donkey Kong 64. I think they were also for.
They've got a couple places on our list. Released for published by Nintendo. I believe rated T for teen. Yeah. It was banned in a couple countries because of violence.
GoldenEye?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. I don't want to know how they reacted to like Call of Duty.
Nope. But reception was extremely high for this game. It was looked at as the third best-selling Nintendo 64 game. Sorry, sold more than 8 million units worldwide. But it was people originally had very low expectations, and it was very unsuccessful at E3 1997.
Really?
People looked at it not good at all. I mean, they didn't want anything to do with it. But it turned out to be one of the biggest critical and commercial successes on the entire system and overall in the entire grand scheme of video games. They also noted many huge improvements over many other games, including varied and detailed environments. Games did not have that. Zoomable sniper rifles, games did not have that before this. They also noticed that ability to neutralize things, actual different states of enemies, and a solid frame rate constantly happening throughout the entire game, regardless of how many people you had playing. There were still lightning, smoke, transparency, and bullet hole were huge. Never had those. This game, for first-person shooters, was huge.
I would say it was basically the accessibility gateway in terms of shooters, because there were shooters before that, most definitely, but it was a very different product that was being made. And most of the really big ones were pretty much PC only at that time. You had Doom, Quake, and what was another really big shooter at that time? The first Unreal Tournament was very it was very PC focused, but also it was just a different type of game altogether. And then when this came out, you had what's quickly become the norm of games, which is the console FPS.
Now, we look at it this way too, from the other successor, the spiritual successor, also made by Rare, Perfect Dark.
Yes, which a lot of people would say was better than GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Perfect Dark required the expansion pack, right? On the N64?
It was one of the 3 games that did.
Yeah, visually it was a big step up from GoldenEye, which was an obvious thing that stuck out. And the bots were, at the time, legendary.
Oh, yeah, they were. There were very, very, very few games. This may even have been the first that had real bots that were smart and fired back at you instead of just wandering around. The campaign for this game, fantastic. This is more... They took the same exact engine they had for GoldenEye 007 and remade it slightly for Perfect Dark. I personally didn't like the controls of Perfect Dark over GoldenEye, but I know that a lot of people didn't really care the differences.
The ability to do like those 2v like 4 AI fights where it was actually like intense and it was you and your friend barely surviving against like an onslaught of computer opponents was awesome, and that was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. Like the bots in GoldenEye were pretty much just there for comedy. Like they were hilarious in GoldenEye. There were certain ways you could just basically glitch the game in that, and they would never hit you.
Yep. The game engine it came with the expansion pack. You needed to have the expansion pack, which was, I think, there's only 3 games that did. There were not many.
Majora's Mask was one, I think.
Yeah, Majora's Mask, due to the constraints of time and stuff.
Yeah.
The game was very, very cool. Without the expansion pack to the game, you were only able to do multiplayer challenges. The combat simulator with 1 to 2 people, and then 8 computer players. If you bought the expansion pack, you got the solo missions. You couldn't play the campaign without the expansion pack. You had all the multiplayer challenges, combat simulator with up to 4 people, 2-player cooperative, 2-paper counter-operative, and then the 8 simulants. So, I mean, there was a big difference between having the expansion pack and not the expansion pack. It also allowed you to have, for the first time, one of the first times to have high-res 640 by 480 graphics.
Holy cow!
Oh, yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I don't know if my computer can handle that.
The reviews to this game were absolutely fantastic. A majority of the reviews were 9.9 out of 10 or higher. Metacritic still has it at 97%, which is pretty big.
Yes. Beaten only by games like Pokemon and like Zelda titles occasionally.
It was the last major first-person shooter for the Nintendo 64, which is the reason a lot of people didn't get to play it, which was already the Nintendo 64 obviously being near its end of its lifespan. The GameCube had already been unveiled, so most people didn't want to buy more games for the 64. It was also the last appearance of this engine, which was used for multiple games because Rare was pretty big. But Rare fell apart after Perfect Dark was released and formed into a couple different companies.
Yep.
So a lot of the major Rare games that you saw, they kind of disappeared. Kind of fell apart.
And I know those at least one of those other companies is still around making games, but they're not very good.
Yeah, Rare still makes some games,
but they're just not. It's not the same. They definitely took a very sharp downgrade after that generation of games. Other notable first-person shooters, we put down the first Call of Duty, because at that point they were actually making something new.
The first Call of Duty was an absolutely beautiful game. I remember, playing it on harder difficulty. I don't even remember what the difficulties were anymore. It's been so long, and it also had some good multiplayer too.
Yes.
Just the act of coming onto that beach. I think that was number 1. It might have been number 2.
I think it was number 1.
It was number 1. Yeah, because you followed Easy Company. Yeah. It was a beautifully made game for what it was. It was so deep in the graphics and everything that happened with the game that I felt it really deserved a point on this list.
Yep, and then in a very similar vein of shooters, this was my equivalent to the first kind of Call of Duty was Counter-Strike. That was my shooter of the time. That was a more PC-focused game. It did come out on Xbox, but I think like 12 people played it for a couple hours, and then they're pretty much just done. But in terms of shooters, it brought in squad-based work, which was awesome. It was very teamwork-oriented, and at the time, the guns were incredibly realistic compared to most shooters. Things like silencers were worked in. There was realistic gun kick, and like you could actually, stop and crouch down to have like very precise fire. And it was at the time, it was the most realistic shooter, and it was really well balanced. There were definitely certain guns that were the strongest and all that, but in terms of actually like how the whole game worked out, it was an incredibly well balanced out game.
Yep.
With some really cool ideas in it that didn't even really continue past it. Like the idea of using the currency between rounds was something that never really caught on huge, but in that game it worked absolutely perfectly.
It did. We had actually 3 of our listeners vote up Counter-Strike. One in Polson voted up Counter-Strike Source, Chris Ramlow with Counter-Strike 1.6, and another one of our listeners with Counter-Strike 1.6.
Yes.
Both the games were absolutely fantastic. They did a very good job with both of them.
On a sad note, Counter-Strike was one of those like resilient games too. It lasted for a very long time. 1.6 was still being played well into Source's release, but recently the community kind of died. I went back on there, and very, very little of the servers are still up, and most of them are like servers that are like they're run in like South America.
Probably switched to another mention for this category that I don't have on there, Team Fortress 2.
Mm-hmm.
Team Fortress 2 now is completely free, so if you want to play one of the best shooters that have ever been made, Team Fortress 2 is completely free through Steam. I recommend it more than most other shooters that actually I recommend it because it's free.
Yes, there's very few reasons not to play the game for TF2. We've talked about it on the show quite a few times, but until Skyrim came out, that was pretty much what I played anytime I got really bored. Like that game just never got old. It was very fun. There were so many options and the best part is in current games in terms of shooters, it's very much focused on that realism in the guns. That's not the focus of TF2 at all. Shooting is incredibly simple in TF2. Very much point and click, very nice big reticle, not a whole lot of kick on your guns or anything like that, and all the guns are just over the top crazy things. So it wasn't about, how good of a shot are you, it's how well can you strategize what you're doing and how well can you work with your teammates and how well can you communicate. And
yeah, very, very, very few games that fully relied on teams.
But another one is what I put on here too, and that's Left 4 Dead. And Left 4 Dead, while it did come after TF2, I think in terms of emphasizing teamwork, did that better than any game I can think of. Left 4 Dead I played for years because of that. Because even on your competitive modes where you're playing versus, so it's actually a team versus a team, all it was about was how well your team meshed. Like the best team of individuals who were awesome at the game could lose so hard to another team that meshed better than them. And that was really cool to me because it's just not something you see in a shooter.
Actually, a couple of our listeners also mentioned Left 4 Dead.
Yep. So it was a very different thing at the time. It actually was apparently invented by people testing bots for Counter-Strike Source.
It was.
Yep, because they just gave a bunch of bots knives, and they're like, wow, this is really fun, and they just made a game.
And now they work for Valve.
Yep.
They actually work for a couple companies. I think they got bought up by a couple different places.
Really?
Yeah. There was 4 or 5 of them that made.
Well, Source was already Valve, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were already working for Valve before that.
No, there was an actual mod. The people who made Left 4 Dead modded the game, and they did not work for those companies at all.
Very cool.
And when Valve bought the game from them, which I assume they did, but then again, you're using their software, so they get the game for free no matter what.
Yeah.
Which is a big thing that we've noticed with StarCraft 2. We'll talk about, I believe, when we get to the RTSs. They work for those companies now.
Yeah.
They got bought up. Another first-person shooter that is both mentioned by 2 of our listeners. One, Mr. Grant Braun, who was on the show last week.
Yes.
And then one of our other listeners who did not tell me I can mention their name mentioned Chex Quest.
Chex Quest.
It was a non-violent first-person shooter created in 1996 by a company I've never heard of called Digital Cafe as the Chex cereal promotion aimed at children under the age of 9.
Is this like Yonoid but FPS mode or what?
It was a total conversion of a more violent video game Doom, but turned it non-violent.
That's awesome.
Very cool. The game had a very big cult following. probably the kids that played it when they were younger than 9. It looks exactly like Doom, just
But with
checks and aliens running around. It looks like the CD that has Chex Quest was from America Online.
Oh my god!
So this was those days.
That sounds awesome.
Yep.
I might play Chex Quest when I get some free time.
On release, the game was very, very largely posited by gamers. Consumers of diverse ages gave enthusiastic feedback, and there were many requests for development of sequels. So Chex Quest number 2 and Chex Quest number 3 came out. Chex Quest number 3 was released in 2008. Was developed and released as a service to the fans by former Digital Cafe members.
Was it still in like the Doom visual style, or did they like fully like revamp it and be like, yeah, AAA shooter Chex Quest?
There's not even a button to click.
Oh, jeez. Okay, I'm assuming it wasn't that expensive of a game then.
No. But kids that got video games in cereal boxes for free. Oh wow, that's a game because kids, a lot of kids did not have money at all. Especially,
dude, I was so excited when I got a Nintendo, like an old Nintendo, very late, with American Gladiators. Like, that was, like, the best thing in the world. I mean, that game was not that good, but I played the heck out of it because it was there.
Yep. The promotion and etc. Was they gave out 5.7 million games through Rice Chex, Wheat Chex, and Corn Chex cereal boxes. That game would be high quality, which would be a normal retail value of $30 to $35, but it was offered for free through these cereal boxes.
Whoa!
So kids were super happy to get this. They also had a very big magazine circulation of 42 million. But
wait, what do you think the chances of something like anywhere near that happening again would be? I don't think Fruit Loops is coming out with a all-time classic RPG anytime soon.
The development costs were cut down drastically of the game. The company worked with America Online to give their crappy discs where you get the game plus 50 free hours for America Online.
Yeah.
That was this day.
You think you can still redeem those?
You can. America Online still does exist, and they still do redeem most of those codes. Not joking.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
But yeah, that's Chex Quest, which a couple of our listeners mentioned very highly. Which I'm very happy to see.
The fact that it was free and at the time was a quality game is pretty cool, actually. That's something that definitely was a boundary for a lot of kids, especially with a computer game.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the last really FPS to mention is in the vein of is in the franchise I never really played, but Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which most of the fans would say was the last. Yeah, it was one of the last really good ones. That was
Modern Warfare. I put that on there because I remember playing that a lot.
It's a good reason.
Yeah. It's a first-person shooter developed, obviously, by Infinity Ward, the same little group that created Call of Duty #1, which I also put on this list. It was released for every single system, from Windows, Mac OS, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Wii, and also made for the Nintendo DS, so it was not on the PlayStation Portable, unfortunately. Square Enix also helped make the Japanese release. The story takes place in the year 2011, where a radical leader was executed in the Middle East. So that takes place right now. But the multiplayer...
That's also every other shooter that came after this game.
After this game.
Every single other shooter after this game was pretty much that, in a nutshell.
Most of the reviews on a very, very new level of immersion and intensity that was never seen in any other games. The campaign never lets up. It was a deep... all the way through. The multiplayer rivaled Halo 3 in the terms of reach and scope. The game, very, very big. I remember playing many hours with my friends on it. Many people actually rated in the top 10 FPSs of all time, which we did. We put it on our list.
Mm-hmm. And there's less than 10 here, so it's at least top 10.
The Metacritic puts it anywhere between 92 and 94. The Wii version had a 76.
Yeah, and I think the DS version was a little lower than that even.
I don't even see the DS version on here. It received tons and tons of awards. Best graphics, best shooter, best 360 game, PlayStation 3 game, best action game, best shooters. Tons and tons of huge awards for this. The multiplayer, the map packs were not super expensive yet. And when the map packs came out, they were actually something that was developed after the game was made.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically made the same way that Halo had done that, and Halo was the first ones to really be like, making a game that then later on you got maps for. And at least Halo, from what I remember, had a decent model of making them free after a little while. I don't know if that really is continued with most of the Counter-Strike stuff.
Lots of objects
God, Call of Duty.
Yeah. Lots of objects were destructible within the environment, and it also ran in a new engine that had HDR lighting effects, dynamic shadows, and depth of field, which is why I put it up here, because the game was visually stunning for what it was at that time.
Oh, and even now, though, it's visually, it was a very well-made game. I mean...
Yeah. And
they put a lot of time into that.
They actually had veterans, do motion capture sessions and had an artificial intelligence that was deep that the veterans helped design. So that says a lot to the company of Infinity Ward, the old company of Infinity Ward, dealing with this. I mean, yeah, they did a very good job. I still praise this game as very high. And so if you have the opportunity to play it, actually, if you have the opportunity to play any of the games we've mentioned so far today, please, if you want to, do.
Mm-hmm. And that is pretty much it for FPSs. You could spend forever on those just because of how many there are and how many great FPSs there were. But to keep them as equal time, that is FPS. And then we move on to the deadest of dead genres, really. We have arcade on here because I personally finally remember arcades. I kind of came with the tail end of it, but arcades were an awesome place. It was kind of... It was a different version of gaming. It was a more social idea of it, and some of the games were just very different from what you can get on a console because you could have much more specialized controllers. So everyone did all sorts of weird stuff, but it was also where gaming formed, and not totally formed because there was Tetris, but in terms of where gaming really took its roots, games like Pac-Man and Galaga, which are both on this, or Miss Pac-Man and Galaga, because Miss Pac-Man was a very popular game as well. Both of them were pretty much equally popular after a while. Mm-hmm. But those were they were everywhere when they came out, and they were what popularized the idea of a video game. So they definitely deserved a spot there, even if that notion is gone. Pole position was actually a request by one of the professors here. Stated to be one of his favorite games, and he doesn't even play games anymore. But that was at the time. I mean, it was what you did. They were available at like bars and stuff, and that was a really well-made game. It was a racing game for those who didn't exist in like 1982.
I don't even know when
not
Pole
82,
Position came out.
but it was early. It was a while back.
Checking. 1982 and Namco.
Wait,
produced...
really? That was the most random year I could have guessed, and
you got it right.
Nailed it.
Namco
awesome.
and Atari in the United States of America. I mean, if you've played any of those racing games, I mean, you know what this game looks like.
Yep.
Yeah, I love this game. It was great for what it was. No story, just racing.
Yep.
Just racing.
And then another all-time great that kind of formed in the arcades was Mortal Kombat. We mentioned it earlier. Pretty much the most violent game of its time. If you don't know what Mortal Kombat is, first off, welcome to the world. This is called Earth.
It's also in our rejoiner.
Yes. But it was a fighter, and then it was most well known for the incredibly gruesome fatalities that you could do once you won the game. You would like rip someone's head off, or like chop them in half, or turn into a dragon and eat them. It was pretty over the top, which was really where it held most of its charm. In that it was gory to a campiness. It was very odd, but it was really cool, and it was very unique for the time. And they had a level of fan service that was really unexpected from a arcade fighter. You didn't really see that, but there were all sorts of little inside things, and like they would have secrets hidden in the game, and then they would actually like make the secrets tailor towards like myths and stuff that had formed about other games, and it was really cool. They did a very good job of making the game interesting for being not the most. I don't want. It was a very solid fighter, but there were other fighters out there that were much more complex games, like Street Fighter and stuff, that it had to hold its own against, and I think it did it just by pure charm. And then another big one. I don't think you said you'd played this. Time Crisis. It was like the arcade shooter to me. When I think arcade shooters, I think House of the Dead and Time Crisis, and that's pretty much it for the most part. And then this one kind of got a dual mention because it's in another category, but DDR was huge too for a while. It popularized an entire genre of games that kind of exploded for a while.
Throw Street Fighter in there too.
Yep, Street Fighter I would say goes in there. Maybe Soul Calibur. I think Soul Edge was before it, but those were just it was a different type of fighter.
You got Space Invaders, Rampage, Pong. This list goes on.
It goes on forever. I mean, it's very hard to narrow them down for the most part. But it's important to at least have that as a category.
Space Invaders.
Space Invaders was a blast. I loved that game.
Yep.
Space Invaders or Galaga? I think I like Galaga more, though.
I got Galaga. Galaga
Yeah.
wins it for me. Galaga wins it as the best arcade game
Ever?
hands down.
Galaga.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have to honestly I would have to think a long time before I could even pick one out of it because there's just so many games.
Well, they all
there's
revolutionized
so many.
different types of things.
Yes.
I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of them. I mean,
Well, when you're making a controller, when you make the game, it's such a different process of making a game. Like you made such vastly different games from each other at that point in time that it was interesting. It was very cool. But I mean, I think it's pretty much the most you can talk up the arcade games because you just can't narrow down such a large category.
Yep. Okay, so it's 6:27. We're gonna play another song. But we don't have a gift to give away. And
So now it's just for your listening pleasure.
Yeah. I found out that Neverwinter Nights, the music was made by Jeremy Soule.
Jeremy Soule.
Jeremy Soule of Skyrim.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
Yes. So,
Awesome.
I'm gonna be playing the main theme from Neverwinter Nights here on 90 FM, your only alternative. You're listening
gaming.
to 90 terabytes of alternative gaming. 90 FM, your only alternative.
For gaming.
Yeah. Anyway, so here is the Neverwinter Nights main theme here on what I just mentioned.
Yes, that place. "90 Terabytes of Alternative Gaming" is brought to you by
The Tech Lounge, offering the world's best next-generation and retro game systems, along with great-tasting Fairtrades coffee, espresso, jet smoothies, and energy drinks. Open Tuesday through Saturday, noon to midnight, Sunday, 2 p.m. till 10, and closed on Monday.
Located at 1036 Main Street in downtown Stevens Point.
Visit them at the web at www.techloungesp.com. The Tech Lounge, where the future is yesterday.
90 Terabytes of Alternative Gaming is brought to you by Gaming Generations in Stevens Point, located at 135 Division Street. Phone number 715-254-9990.
Gaming Generations features new releases and a wide selection of used games. They also have the classics you grew up with and the know-how to get your console up and running again.
That's Gaming Generations in Stevens Point, your source for gaming.
90 Terabytes of Alternative Gaming does not represent the views of WWSP, 90 FM, or the University of Wisconsin school system. The views expressed and the information given in this broadcast can be used at the sole risk of the listener. I mean, let's face it, the opinion of these two guys is about as pristine as Wikipedia. After all, their source is the internet. And now, back to the show. Fight.
Welcome back to 90 Terabytes of Alternative Gaming here on our very special double-length episode, 180 terabytes, if you will. See what I did there. We are doing a countdown, or not countdown, a overview of our favorite games of various genres and other such things, basically just things to talk about for 2 hours pertaining to video games. We just went over the arcade games and all that. If you're not familiar with the show, we are a video game talk show here on a 90 FM, where we talk about video games, video game players, video game current events, video game makers, all sorts of things along those lines. I suppose at this point we can pretty much just get right back into it. We can swing straight into the next genre, which I said earlier DDR kind of got double placed, and that's because the next one is rhythm, which honestly, it doesn't exist that much anymore. It was a pretty quick passing fad.
I'm going to mention real quick, if you've got any opinions on what we've said here, you can head to facebook.com/90terabytes and tell us all the things you dislike or agree with us on, or whatever your favorite video games are. You can also post any reviews of video games that are brand new, any old video games, and we'll be gladly reading them to the listening masses.
It is quite encouraged.
Yes, quite encouraged, because there are many people who posted on our 90 Terabytes of Alternative Gaming page. So, yes, facebook.com/90terabytes. Rhythm games.
Rhythm games.
I'm going to give it hands down to the Guitar Hero.
The first one?
Yeah. because it revolutionized what the industry possibly could do.
I would have to give it DDR because DDR is what made it. I mean, you could say things like Beatmania and all this. There were a bunch of rhythm. I mean, it was a genre that already existed basically in Japan, but DDR made it popular because everyone heard the whole thing. It's like, oh, you can get exercise while you do it, and everyone's like, oh, this is going to be how we keep American kids from getting fat. And so, giant explosion of popularity out of nowhere made the genre into a thing, and then pretty much negated all of the health effects by making Guitar Hero. But it was a really good game. It was a really good game.
Dude, well, then I got to throw the other mention we have in there is Rock Band.
Rock
Have
Band.
you ever played Rock Band on Expert for drums? Do you know how much
Yes.
sweat you put on?
Yes, that is
Oh.
the only instrument of any of those that
The
is
keyboard.
comparable to having to play it. Yes, keyboard, I guess, as well. But then outside of those, which was really like the brief boom, there's the only kind of remnants are indie games that still play around with it. There was one that came out free, or no, it wasn't free. It was pay what you want, and it was called like Pongle or something like that. It was like set to like crazy avant-garde jazz music, and it was all like colorful. But that's the most recent one I can think of. But it was kind of in the vein of Audio Surf, which came out a couple of years ago, which was a game where it was basically what everyone really wanted out of rhythm-based games, which was you listen to your music while you played it. You actually played, like, loaded files off your computer, and it would make a level to it, and then you played it, which was really cool, but at that point, I think it had already started fizzling. And nowadays, I mean, do they still make any Rock Band stuff? I mean, I think it was a while back that the last one came out.
Yeah, they still make... Rock Band 3 came out.
When did that come out, though?
That came out in... If it opens any quicker, October of 2010.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, the sprint of production of these games has stopped. You're not getting, 12 a year.
Because they made Pro Mode, and then that had real notes that come across the screen, and then we just had Rocksmith come out.
Oh, that I remember now. Yes,
Where you
I totally forgot that comes out.
Where it comes out,
came out.
It comes with a USB to, I think, whatever these audio jacks are called. I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah, but you could actually plug a guitar straight into your PlayStation.
Yep,
or your
and it was a
computer.
way to actually learn how to play the instrument.
Because you actually play the physical notes while playing the song. So that added a huge thing, and so you can do that with Rock Band, as far as I remember. You can do that, the new Rock Band. I owned Beatles Rock Band 1, and Rock Band number 2. I never bought Rock Band 3 because I ran out of money. And I know they came out with Green Day Rock Band, which kind of...
Is saddening. Of all the bands you can think of to give an entire game
You give it to the Beatles and Green Day.
Yeah, they're not exactly on the same level.
No. Yeah, Beatles kind of...
But really, I'm assuming it was whoever would let you make a game about them.
Yeah, but you could just add Green Day as a music pack.
Yeah, that's true.
Beatles said no.
But they needed to get people's money.
But I didn't really saw Harmonix doing that.
I think at the end it was pretty much desperation was kind of the cologne on everybody. Everyone was doing the craziest things they could to try to make their rhythm-based game sell. Rhythm-based game sell.
Yeah.
But they kind of flooded the whole market, and the whole genre kind of died.
Yeah.
It's not a very common thing anymore.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
And I really wish that I could have bought a Pro Guitar for Rock Band 3 because you play the real notes there too.
Yeah.
And you can also there's a MIDI adapter where you can plug in instruments right into it too.
Yep.
So if you got a full keyboard, you can play with the full keyboard. So I mean, that's pretty cool. Rock Band 3
it's
added
very cool.
Had a lot of really cool things.
There were a lot of very cool ideas, but like I said, they just hit the genre so hard that everyone just kind of went, okay, no more, you're done.
Yeah.
Flip the table.
Yeah. But Rock Band 3 came with gigantic receptions, 10 out of 10s, 5 out of 5s, because, I mean, the revolution of having to be able to use a real instrument.
Yep.
So, I mean, Rocksmith coming and doing that, sure, but Rock Band 3 did it first.
Yeah, but Rocksmith did it with it being like their selling point. You didn't hear a whole lot about that for the Rock Band release that allowed you to do it. They didn't push it as hard. They really
didn't push it as hard, but I heard about it a lot, and that was that would have been the reason I would have bought it. But yeah, now all I want to do is play electric violin. Where's my electric violin, Rock Band?
Electric Violin Hero, the most specific game ever. That's pretty much it for that genre. It's hard to.
There isn't anything more.
Yeah, huh?
There isn't anymore.
It was a window genre, honestly. If we ever did a final, if any of these genres were to get struck, I'd almost have to say that just because of the fact that, I mean, it didn't expand out like so many other genres did. The next one, very much still alive, has been around since the beginning, puzzle games. And now when I say kind of been around since the beginning, I mean it really has, because Tetris was a puzzle game, and it's still one of the best puzzle games ever.
Forgot a music game.
Forgot a music game? What?
Yeah, Parappa the Rappa and
Oh,
Miami.
yep. Parappa the Rappa and all the other games that the developer made along that. And Guitar Man, I guess.
Nanan Shah is the developer.
What was it?
Nanan Shah?
Nana Shah.
It's
okay.
a Japanese.
Yep.
No,
like I said, rhythm games have been around in Japan for a while. I mean.
And they probably still always will be.
Yeah.
But as an American money-making point, probably not.
Yeah. But the next one being puzzle. Like I said, Tetris, easy first, because, I mean, it introduced the world to games and puzzle games at the same time. So it's hard to beat that in terms of being a puzzle game. But one of my personal favorites that I still love playing from time to time is the entire Katamari series. All the, like, Katamari Damacy, we love Katamari and Katamari Forever. They're so crazy. There's no game like that at all. You can't think of any other game that's very similar to one where you have a little ball with some sort of gravitational field around it where you can roll up things smaller than you. And then you just got to try to pick up the most things you can so you can make the King of the Cosmos make some stars. Other than that, we had Bejeweled, another very iconic one. It's one that's stuck around for at least people who don't play video games even. I mean, it's one of those really pervasive games. Professor Layton, definitely a smaller series of games. It was available for the DS mostly. But they were really clever puzzle games. They were all little riddles. And you could accumulate hints and stuff like that, and you got scored based on how well you solved the puzzles, like whether or not you got them wrong. Mm-hmm. And the puzzles were just really well made, and I think the art style helped too, because it had the feeling of like a Miyazaki style thing, where it felt very fantastic, and that was cool for a puzzle game. And then, of course, one of the few games that is on the list since we started reviewing things, Portal 2. And then Portal 1 are amazing puzzlers that could kind of be put into FPS, but not really. I would consider them more puzzlers just because that's the core of the game. And I think they kind of changed how we perceive puzzlers, just like Half-Life changed how we perceive like the adventure shooters. It was done so well and so uniquely that it just kind of made a shift in the entire genre.
That it did.
Yep, but that's pretty much all for puzzles, I think. There's not...
Puzzle games aren't really that,
We could rave about Portal for a while, but it's already happened, so... Yeah,
we had a review. We gave it like a 99 or something.
It was an amazing game.
Oh, yeah. We just did that. Well, actually, we never talked about that. We did the DLC.
Oh, yeah, we went back. That was really well made, too.
Yeah, too short.
Too short, but it was free.
Yeah.
It's just extra levels on a game we already bought, so...
Yeah.
And it was a full extra zone on top of like the existing 5 or so for the multiplayer.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's not bad for DLC.
And you got a whole ending and stuff too. And there were some spots where we broke out laughing and actually had to stop. Yep. I actually stopped moving for like a minute as I was laughing. Yep. Laughing at the jokes they were pulling
It was really
out.
funny. The ending was pretty crazy too.
Yeah. But we like that. Portal 2, that's out there.
What was it called? It was Peer Review. That's what it was. Peer Review was the DLC.
All these games we're mentioning right now, great gifts. They're great gifts.
This is true. Yes.
So with the holidays coming up and Black Friday, instead of spending all the money on Black Friday, buy older games and etc. Maybe
it's a good method, honestly.
Maybe from one of our sponsors.
Whoa!
Gaming Generations.
Hint, hint. Nudge,
right
nudge.
Right here in Stevens
know what
Point,
I mean?
Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
Know what I mean?
You could go there. You don't have to. You could. We can't tell you to do anything.
We would never suggest it, really.
No, never.
Up next, this is pretty much Q's domain. I kind of dodge in and out of this genre. I've just never gotten fully immersed into them. But Q is pretty much the RTS guru of us.
Yeah.
Of most people, really.
Can I see my list?
Yes, you can.
How many of these had you played?
I've played Age of Empires. I played Age of Empires and Age of Empires 2, and I think a little bit of 3. I played StarCraft. I played StarCraft 2. I played Warcraft, and I played Warcraft 2. But none of them did I get that good at in multiplayer. Warcraft, that's what I liked about Warcraft. Warcraft was more single player for the most part.
And Warcraft 3 was one of the first games that started out with making user maps so anybody could play.
Yep, Warcraft 3 I had a lot of fun with.
Me and my friends had a lot of fun with that game.
Lots of tower defense out of Warcraft 3.
Of the list of the games I've got here, we obviously start in the history of RTS games, which stands for real-time strategy, which are the games that you normally see playing in the world games. These are the games that you have to be really, really smart and understand millions of things happening at once.
And be focused on this game quite strongly.
Yeah, so that's why you see these television stations in Korea, and actually I believe we'll be. I have a friend who will be starting one here in the state of Wisconsin.
Really?
Of watching StarCraft as a professional sport. now StarCraft and StarCraft 2 stand on their own as games that shine so brightly that other games and other genres just are illuminated, or kind of more like if they were made of hydrogen, the star would just eat them.
It's a good analogy, really. It's it's down to earth.
Yeah. You've got the games on this list sold tons and tons of copies. StarCraft 1 sold a lot. It really did.
And I mean, it was one of those games that, even though StarCraft 2 took forever to come out, people were still playing StarCraft when StarCraft 2 came out. It lasted forever.
Every time we had a LAN party, me and my friends, and we'd get 6 or 7 or 8 of us together, we'd sit there and play StarCraft all the way up until we were in college, and continued through college until StarCraft 2 came out.
Even as a group who wasn't like, none of me or my friends were like, competitive grade StarCraft players, but we could still sit and LAN that game for hours on end. It was just so undoubtedly fun that no matter what kind of player you were, they allowed room for it. You could, like, the co-op playing was always fun, and there were so many mods. There were so many mods that people made. All sorts of crazy maps, from in-game RPGs to tower defense things to... it was Pokemon made into StarCraft. It was crazy.
Some of the maps they put into StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3.
People put some work into it.
That they did.
And of course, fastest map.
We had two of our listeners on the 90 Terabytes Facebook page mention StarCraft also. Listener Chris Ramlow says StarCraft is amazing, or so good. That's the exact word I paraphrase. So good is what he used. You have Age of Empires 1 and Age of Empires 2. Also, 2 games that revolutionized what RTSs were.
And it was a very different speed than like StarCraft and Warcraft.
Age of Empires 1 is the game that got me into video gaming. So I gotta rate that as high as I can, because my brothers, who may be listening right now, they had bought that game. Between the two of them, I didn't get to play it. I got to watch them play it. And that was when it started. And then another RTS that I haven't added to the list was Lords of the Realm.
Lords of the Realm.
Uh-huh.
I feel like I've heard you mention it, but I really don't know that game at all.
It's a very old game where you manage a city, and then you actually do battles. You have control over all the units inside of a castle if you're getting attacked, or if you're attacking the castle.
Very cool.
It was a very, very cool game. Next honorable mention on the mention of the top list is Rise of Nations. Rise of Nations, I think I've got to give it to second place behind StarCraft 1.
Yeah.
Rise of Nations was a beautiful game that was designed almost perfectly by a company that got taken over and then destroyed.
Who did that? Which one of the snowballs?
I think EA.
Okay.
The game company was Big Huge Games, and they made Rise of Nations and then another one after that, but it wasn't Rise of Nations 2. An absolutely beautiful game of RTS, of the quality that you can put into have a storyline along with it too. You could do whole campaigns of real wars, and it was beautifully done. I absolutely loved it. Warcraft 3 I've mentioned already. Command & Conquer: Tiberian Sun, another fantastic RTS that I truly love that it's on this list. And then the newest one on the list is AI War. AI War is a game that I know a lot of people have no idea about. Even less have heard about. It's called AI War Fleet Command. It's a real-time strategy computer game created by an independent developer named Arkan Games, which was released in June 2nd of 2009. Basically, it's a kind of like a tower defense traditional real-time strategy where a bunch of players go against two artificial intelligence computers that get smarter as you play them.
And then trounce you.
And then destroy everything you've ever done. I never won. I played this a bunch of times. Tons of stars on tons of planets. You take over all this stuff. You take buildings over. And then you have strategic areas that the AI is going to destroy you in. And you can never win. You never win. I never won at all. I played it many times. I've spent 24 hours plus. And yeah.
It just by its very nature of being an AI that learns how to fight against you makes it just inhuman, literally. But I haven't played. I want to play that game actually.
We will. We'll eventually.
You've discussed it a few times. How is it available? Is it
It's on Steam.
It's on Steam. Okay.
Yeah. They had it on sale on Steam for 10 cents.
Wow.
Before they dropped it back up to $20. And at that time, I didn't buy it for 10 cents, so I felt that if I took my friend's copy for 10 cents, it wasn't wrong, because it's 10 cents. But we have another guest in the room.
Mason is sitting down.
Mason, the mule man.
I think he's taking
the
over at
station
7,
manor.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Last second emergency for our jazz DJ, so
Yep.
taking over at 7.
Yep.
The cool stylings of
What we've been
Mason.
doing here,
All right.
what we've been doing is talking about our favorite video games of all time.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got?
I think obviously you guys probably hit this already, but GoldenEye was the go-to.
Yep, we talked about GoldenEye
Yep.
for a while.
And my cousin has the best line. He's like, I would have been a 4.0 through college if GoldenEye hadn't been invented. I mean, he was like a 2.5, so I don't really know how much I believe.
Yeah, I was about to say,
but-
that's a pretty strong shift.
But I don't know.
Was he that good at GoldenEye?
I really don't know. I hope so with that amount of hours put into it. But other than that, I put a lot of hours into Diddy Kong Racing.
Yep, Diddy
That
Kong
was my
Racing is
go-to
up there.
racing game. That and like Ken Griffey Jr. Major League Baseball. Like those were
Yeah.
my 3 go-to N64 games. And Super Nintendo when I was really young, Mega Man. That was always a good one.
Yes, we never meant. I guess that would probably be under platformers.
Yeah, it's
the
under
Mega Man
platformers.
franchise was awesome because they were so difficult.
But yeah, Mega Man was like frustrating to the point where you put,
Mega Man was the hardest game. One of
well,
the
you put
hardest
it,
games
you put
Yeah,
an
no, that
hour,
was-
you put 90 minutes into it. All of a sudden, mom calls down for dinner,
And
you're
it's
like,
all
I
gone.
can't turn it off.
Yeah.
Like, but your mom gets ticked at you if you don't turn the console off. So, double-edged
Just
sword.
one more level.
Choose your poison.
Save your game. I can't save it, Ma.
I'm not on that save point.
It's
yet.
not how this works.
And our guest Chris Ramlow mentions we just talked about Portal 2. Portal 2 is $10 fun cheaper today on Steam. So if you
Really?
wanted to get a gift for someone,
I swear they have a sale for Portal 2 like once a week.
they sell their games for so cheap.
That's very
and
true.
then Chris Ramlow also mentions Rise of Nations was amazing. Landing with that game was so much fun with his friends. I wish the studio lived on, and he makes a crying face. So yep,
Brought the tears.
Yes. GoldenEye, I gotta mention that again. If you've never played GoldenEye for the N64, please.
Though honestly, going back to that after only having played recent shooters would be pretty
Oh,
weird.
it's frustrating.
If you
Oh,
had
yeah.
never
It is
played a
frustrating.
GoldenEye, and you ever played GoldenEye, that would be tough.
I guess I'll give it that. Yeah.
Wait, I use C buttons to do this? Good God, why?
Yeah, that's probably like the hardest concept to grasp.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, just like the different controls. Like, okay, this is a little odd, but it takes some adjustment.
Yep.
That and the fact that you really don't know what you're shooting at. It's
Yeah,
just kind of a
that's
blur.
true.
Wait, no, hold on. It's that blob. It's that blob.
Yeah.
What were we talking about before Mason came in?
Before Mason came in, we were on one of our last few. We just went over RTS. The next one was a little bit small, but there are some like really great games in it, really, which are the simulators.
Simulators.
Yeah, we saw Flight Sim, even way back when Flight Sim's been around for a while. And
Say,
they
I
were
was
a
rocking
blast.
Flight Sim back in like Windows 98.
Yep. I had an actual like yoke that I used with like it had the throttle on it, and then I had
Yeah.
rudders that
I had the
sat on the
same thing.
floor. It was awesome.
Yep.
It was the coolest thing in the world, and I mean, all of these simulators were really good. There was SimCity, which was huge.
SimCity, all the SimCities revolutionary.
999.
Yep.
Yep.
999.
SimCity 2000, SimCity 3000, SimCity 4, SimCity 4 Rush Hour added tons of stuff. All those are beautifully made games. Very sad that SimCity 5 never came out because
Yeah.
SimCity 4 came out in like 2002.
And SimCity 5, wasn't there actually some video out for it even?
They had made video for it, but they decided to switch over to making Spore.
Which was so much better. Not really.
Spore had tons of potential.
It had tons of potential, and it had tons of hype. And then it didn't turn out to be that
You start as
awesome.
a race of people. You start as a cellular organism, and you evolve this organism to make an entire spacefaring race. And they screwed up the space.
Yeah, which is like, that's supposed to be your end game. That's supposed to be like your goal, and then
Yeah.
it just kind of bleh.
Oh, you have to go around getting spice. Really? You're not going to put
Interplanetary
in...
travel, so we have enough salt.
Yeah. So more. We have to get more. Resources. No, there's only one resource. It's called spice.
It makes sense if you don't think about it.
So does that expression. Other ones, of course, Roller Coaster Tycoon. I played a lot of
Tycoon.
and Zoo Tycoon, which was another similar game that was awesome because you could have a thing full of like dinosaurs and then let them free in your park.
Sim Tower was another huge one that a lot of
I
people
never
didn't
played
play.
that one.
I loved that one. I really did. Got to mention it to The Sims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was rocking the expansion pack when it came out. The Live and Large expansion pack. Like the first one where you could buy the
Never did
robot
it.
servant.
Yep. Yeah, The Sims definitely revolutionized. It's the biggest selling game of all time on computers.
And they're
by
still
far,
very popular.
by far. And they just keep on. They just had another one come out, another expansion pack to The Sims 3. Sims Medieval came out 2011. So I mean, they're definitely putting these games out,
and they're still selling. It's a very casual market, which is, I mean, it's nice to be able to get a corner on that, I would think.
City building games, I'm gonna give, because this is under this genre, Caesar 3.
Yes.
Which was a beautifully made game. If you ever want to simulate ancient Rome, very good. And then Pharaoh and Cleopatra, simulating what you did in Egypt, was very big games.
I guess I would probably put things like Black and White in here as well.
Yep, Black and White is another one.
Populous.
Populous was an amazing game. Populous revolutionized quite a few of these games. I know a lot of people played Populous at the beginning, which I did. And I made some friends through that, and I remember in middle school.
And I guess you could kind of, what was it called, Dungeon Keeper or Dungeon...
Diablo kind of almost fits in this
No,
too.
it was one where you created the dungeon. You were like
Dungeon Keeper.
Dungeon Keeper, yes. That was a pretty crazy game, and I guess that would probably fall into Simulator. It's kind of a hard one to place, though.
Yeah, there are a lot of games that are just really hard to place.
Have you guys done like an educational category?
Oregon Trail wins.
Oh,
Yep.
Math Blaster.
Heartbeat.
I mean, Oregon Trail is pretty cool, but was Math Blaster in the discussion?
Well, what about Number Munchers?
We never talked about it. We never actually talked about it. I'm just saying Oregon Trail.
All right. Well, yeah.
Dude,
Oregon
Number
Trail.
Munchers is how I learned what multiplers were. Multiples were.
You didn't learn English.
Yeah,
I
I didn't. It was Number Munchers, not Word Munchers.
Taylor speaks binary at that point.
And then the only remaining category is one that it's host to a lot of insanely legendary games, and that'd be adventure games. A very broad topic, and what it really has changed over time. One of the first really big ones would be Myst, where like that was the first time that photorealism was brought in, and it was very visually striking. Nowadays it's really not, but I mean it was full 3D rendered environments that you could walk around through.
More or less
slideshow.
An adventure game fits under these categories: puzzle solving, problem solving, narrative, interactive story, exploration, assuming the role of a character or hero, and having the manipulation of objects.
Yes.
That's the more adventure game. I would put Tomb Raider under this.
Yes.
Tomb Raider was a very big game, and I know a lot of people played it just to see Lara Croft on the PlayStation number 1.
Yeah.
Just to see her. I know quite a few older men
Creepy.
that did that.
Did you know that her bust size was actually an accident? One of the
Yes,
developers, he accidentally increased her bust size by 150%, and he was about to set it back when his boss came in. He's like, whoa. No. We're going to leave this. And now she's got like 14 games and movies.
And who was it? Who plays her?
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
The
Also
universal
starring
adopter.
Daniel Radcliffe,
Daniel
Craig,
Craig.
and Gerard Butler. Yes.
Those actors I don't know.
Gerard Butler.
300?
I know who they are. I
Daniel
just
Craig
don't
is
care who
Bond.
they are.
Come on.
Also similar to that would be the Resident Evil series.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to put survival horrors into anything. I'd say it's the closest to adventure. So I'd put Resident Evil 4 somewhere in there. Minecraft kind of got pigeonholed into this.
We talked about Catherine not that long ago.
Yes.
On our show, Catherine fits under that category by Atlas.
Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time are both massive titles here.
Yeah, I would put them there.
And then of course Monkey Island, which I've played off and on, but that was like the epitome of point and click adventures, which is another one of those dead genres. Really, you see little bits.
Would you throw like a Grand Theft Auto in this?
What I wouldn't. I guess adventure maybe. I'd consider it more of a sandbox game for the most part.
Yeah. No, and that's.
But I guess
the
that's
other
also where
area.
I would put Minecraft. It's.
Maybe
I guess-
Sandbox is an adventure game. Is a subgenre.
Would you say so? I guess so. So I would say
Most
this would be a
likely, yeah.
fitting area for GTA.
Yep.
And that would definitely, I would say, deserve a spot within the greatest.
Well,
of
which
it.
one do you go with?
One was fun, but
Grand Theft Auto 4
San
had a
Andreas.
whole story.
San Andreas.
4 had a story, but San Andreas was just.
Oh, that was a great.
There
game.
was an
They're
appeal
all
to
great
that.
games.
Yeah.
But I have to say Grand Theft Auto 4 as the best piece of art.
Yeah.
Because the depth of the story they put into it was just. You cared for these characters a bit. You didn't care about them, a ton. And I'm hoping they fix that with the next one, where we have, a full emotional connection to these characters, which I know a lot of video games have been switching towards.
Yeah. Well, that's what made Skyrim so amazing. Honestly,
yeah.
was that they made each character so well personalized that you could actually ascribe a personality to each of them.
Mm-hmm.
which is very new inside of a video game. You didn't have the depth of character that you see in other mediums.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, I would say the Zelda games were very good at that a long time ago. Like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, they may not have been realistic people, but they were very well-made characters, all of them, and most of them stick out in your mind pretty easily. Like the terrifying mask guy, or... Well, I never remember any of their names. That's the only problem. And video games have been bad about that forever. There's never really any reason to know any character by name.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Like, it's always like, oh yeah, that guy who stands by the windmill and cranks the box and plays the Song of Storms for a while.
Windmill Man.
Windmill Man.
That's
Who could forget Windmill Man?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the end of our show. It's 7 o'clock on your...
Just busting across the 2-hour line.
Wednesday. This is November 23rd. Of 2011. Thank you for listening to 9 Terabytes of Alternative Gaming.
Sticking with us for the full 2 hours.
Yes, if you did, I know there were quite a few who did and continued to message us on our Facebook profile. Thank you for all of that.
Yep.
We hope you really, really, really loved it. I'm going to leave you with the song before you hear a little closer to our show. I'm going to leave you with the Kingdom Hearts music, one of the songs when you fight Sephiroth.
Oh, God.
This is
that was so hard.
Yeah.
That was so hard.
One of the hardest boss fights in all video games.
Yep, never beat him.
I did, but I played many, many hours to beat him. And we're playing that. Thank you for listening to 9 Terabytes of Alternative Gaming. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/90terabytes. You can also subscribe to our 90 Terabytes Reddit on 90terabytes.reddit.com. We would love if you do either of those. You don't have to, but you can. But yeah, so here is the Kingdom Hearts music versus Sephiroth here on 90 FM, your only alternative
for gaming.